Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We're continuing to talk a little bit of the biggest quarterback competitions as we're coming out of fall camp, and we are talking about the Clemson Tigers. Dill, as you know, and as a lot of the listeners know, Clemson is my team heading into 2022. Absolute loaded up on defense. I told in our team preview, which you guys should go check out, I think they're the Georgia of this year. The offense, obviously some question marks, wasn't great last year. But this defense has the potential to be a dominant, smothering defense, kind of like you saw with Georgia last year. Still, I want to get into it, but before that, just wanted to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown the channel. Love talking ball with you guys in the comment section. If you guys do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We really appreciate it. Helps the fellas out a lot. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. Let's hear some of your takes on who should be starting at quarterback for the Clemson Tigers.
I guess everything you kind of hear, it sounds like DJ's kind of the guy, and it's almost not much of a competition because Dabo keeps coming out and saying, oh, he looks so much better. He's lost all this weight and so forth, so forth. But if there's not some monster improvements out of DJ, there's no shot they're competitive on the national landscape, I don't think.
And Dabo hasn't exactly been inspiring the most confidence in the quarterback room. At ACC Media Day, they asked him about it, and he goes, word for word, I believe, DJ hasn't done anything to lose the job, which is not exactly inspiring confidence in his play during spring practice, heading into fall camp. That being said, here's my take on the situation. That offense last year obviously did not have good quarterback play, but it was so bad all around. The offensive line couldn't block. The receivers couldn't catch the ball or create any separation. And Tony Elliott just, quite frankly, lost his mind. That was some of the worst play calling on offense and some of the most bland offense that just nothing worked pretty much that you saw across the country. I mean, they were like one of the worst offenses in the whole entire country, not just the ACC. I think it needs to get better, and I'm not totally sold that it was all DJ's fault. I get it. He wasn't great, but you start him off against that game, neutral site against Georgia, the best defense we've seen in the last decade in college football. And I think that just shook DJ up a little bit. Offensive line didn't really block all year. The wide receivers kind of stunk. I don't think we set DJ up for success in 2021. This year, the offensive line should be better. Hopefully the wide receivers, which is a talented room, should play better. The young running back should be able to run the ball better. I think you're going to see a more improved offense and quarterback from Clemson this year.
And that is like the one thing you think, and how much of that was on DJ, because like at the end of the day, he was really bad. And when you're bad at quarterback, your whole offense is going to just look bad. So it is hard to disentangle what was with DJ, but you're right. The offensive line, everybody knows that was pretty brutal. The wideout room didn't play up to their potential, I wouldn't say. And
close.
And you could argue Tony Elliott just didn't have the same feel it looked like he did, because you're right. It was always sputtering. But at the end of the day, DJ missed so many throws, which makes me think if he's not meaningfully better, I almost think it's worth taking a shot at Klubnik, because you at least know he's talented, and you don't want to go 9-3 this year with that defense. You want to at least make a run at a national title.
I mean, we already have our future ticket for Clemson to win the ACC, and I think they're easily the best team in the ACC. You need the quarterback play to be better. And another reason I'm thinking you just got to start with DJ is you start with DJ, you give him the first couple games where they're favored pretty heavily in all of them, and see if he can get into some rhythm. Now, if you see the same DJ in the same kind of offense that you saw in 2021, then it's maybe time to go with Cade. But I think if you start with Cade Klubnik, I think it gets a lot harder to go back to DJ after you kind of bench him in a sense to go with Cade. So you start with DJ. You see how that offense runs. If DJ can kind of get his feet under him, he lost some weight. He was playing at 265 pounds last year. That is insane. Should be playing left tackle. He's lost some weight. The reports are he's looking better. He's more mobile. And if the offense just looks a little bit better and he feels a little bit more comfortable in the pocket, again, the offensive line just couldn't block last year. The kid's talented. We've seen his talent flash during that true freshman year when Trevor Lawrence had COVID, couldn't play. Like, we know he can play ball at a very, very high level. He did it in high school. He did it as a true freshman. Last year, I think he quite frankly just got rattled and really couldn't get his composure back after starting so horribly against Georgia. So you start with DJ, you see if he can get that composure, get that confidence back. If it doesn't, then you can go with Cade.
And there is precedent for that type of maneuver by Dabo specifically when they
Yes.
had Trevor Lawrence sitting there for 3 or 4 weeks, and they just weren't moving the ball, and it was like, all right, obviously they had a good quarterback. I'm blanking on his name, but it was time to make the switch. And I gotta say, if he's still missing the throws he was missing last year and spiking balls into the ground, which I feel like was fairly consistent or too consistent, you could say. I think after a couple weeks, it might be time. All right, we're not wasting this season because this defense is historically good.
That's another argument I've been hearing is there is some truth to it, like the Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant situation from a couple years ago, and now you kind of have a similar situation. I think two things. DJ is way more talented. The ceiling is way higher with DJ as a quarterback than it was with Kelly Bryant. You kind of knew what you had. He was a good college quarterback, but you knew he wasn't going to the NFL. You knew he wasn't going to be a Heisman Trophy winner. And I also think Trevor Lawrence was generational talent. Cade Klubnik is a damn good recruit, a 5-star for a reason, top 10 player in the country. There's levels to it, in my opinion. And that's not to say Cade Klubnik isn't going to be an All-American Heisman Trophy contender in the future. Trevor Lawrence came into Clemson ready to rock and roll. He was one of the best quarterback recruits we've seen in the last 20 years. Cade Klubnik is not quite at that level. It's very, very hard for those true freshman quarterbacks to come in year one and play at an ACC Power 5 level. And again, with DJ, it's, he can do it. He's got a really good arm. He can move, especially with the lost weight. I think the parallels aren't as clear to me as it is for some other people. People like to situate it as the same situation. I don't think it is. I think Trevor Lawrence was ready to rock and roll clearly. So I'm leaning DJ. And again, you kind of have that safety valve when you start DJ that if it doesn't go well, Cade can come in. But if it doesn't go well and you go with Cade first, it's really hard to go back to DJ.
That probably makes the most sense. Like, you should probably start DJ first for sure. But again, I think if you see the first couple games look the way they looked last year, I don't think there should be a hesitation because you really you can't come close to winning big games the way they were playing offense last year. And I think a lot of that did start down from how DJ was playing.
This defense last year was very good for Clemson. And you're getting Brian Brzee back. You're getting some other guy. Tyler Davis barely played. And then everyone else is returning. I love the linebackers that they bring to the table without James Skalski and Balen Spector, who are damn good football players. Trent Simpson might be the best linebacker in the country. I think a couple other things that I want to note with regard to Clemson's offense is the wide receivers. Justin Ross just was a shell of himself. Very, very unfortunate. Like, we loved him as a young kid at Clemson. And just the injuries, he just wasn't himself. You have some guys like Joseph Nagata, Bo Collins, who I know has been dealing with some injuries. There's been some injuries in the wide receiver room, but the bigger thing I think Clemson is going to lean on is that run game. I think the offensive line will be better. You have guys who are a year older, right? Like, quite frankly, Clemson's offensive line last year was just physically underdeveloped. They should have hit the transfer portal. They were too young. They weren't strong enough to deal with elite defensive lines like the likes of Georgia or NC State. And then also, you have some young running backs who were also true freshmen last year in Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. Those guys are going to be ready to rock and roll and really carry and play a bigger role in that offense. And so it's not going to have to be all DJ. And I think that's really important for Clemson fans and hopefully the offensive coordinators and Dabo to realize. Use the talent around DJ.
DJ did use those running. That's basically the passing yards he put up was getting it out to Shipley and in the other backs because there just wasn't a whole lot of production from his wideouts. And you're absolutely right. Like, part of that's definitely not on him because they didn't play well enough. They weren't healthy enough. And yeah, I kind of am with you on the offensive line front just getting better because there actually is a bunch of talented players. They were just young and part of it, what stands out is that Georgia game and those were full grown NFL stars.
Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Trevon Walker, Nolan Smith. It was disgusting.
If you weren't physically totally ready, then that was a game that was going to get exciting.
If you need another example of why not to schedule, and I hate it as a college football fan to say it, but it's so true. Like, week one, Clemson or Georgia, they shouldn't be scheduling each other. Like, I think this Clemson season goes a lot differently if they just have a cakewalk week one. DJ doesn't get his confidence absolutely shattered. The offensive line had their confidence shattered. The wide receiver unit had their confidence shattered. You start with a cakewalk going into ACC play. You're a more confident team. I think that season looks a lot different for Clemson. Now they start with Georgia Tech. Should be steamroll. And maybe you can see some confidence. But again, I think this offense, and one other guy before we close it out, Joseph Ngata. Let's get the big dog going. We've been waiting for this guy to break out for years.
You just hope he can put a healthy 12 games together because I feel like he can. He's going to be really good. And
he's a freak.
And especially if the quarterback play looks like the DJ looked like when he was a freshman, when he was like legit looked, ooh, this guy's a Heisman level player.
Exactly. And again, we'll close it out with saying that DJ probably should start and probably, in my mind, the offense.
How short of a leash?
That's a good question. That's another conversation. 3 games. When you get into the thick of ACC, you got to know who your quarterback is. And again, what they need to avoid is doing the splits. They can't have like, okay, it's a quarterback competition week 3 as we're getting into the thick of our schedule. DJ gets a couple drives. Cade gets a couple drives. Can't do that. You got to take the first couple of weeks to get it together, know who your quarterback is, and then you got to rock with him. This defense, again, like you said, too talented to let a quarterback hold you back. This is a team that can win a national championship with the defense they have. If their offense, I'm not asking their offense to be top 15 in the country. You just got to be top 30, maybe even top 50. We're not asking anything special.
Top 110.
Just be efficient, control the ball, don't turn the ball over, put your defense in spots to win football games, and you're going to win football games. You should run through the ACC this year. NC State, you're just more talented at every single position than them. This Clemson team is disgustingly loaded up, especially on the defense side of the ball. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate it for DJ. Don't ask too much of him and get ready to rock and roll because this defense is absolutely full of studs and it can be really, really special. Wanted to close it out on this. You guys know I love Clemson football. So if you guys do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate y'all for checking us out and we'll talk to y'all later. Go